I had barely stepped into the flower hall when I heard the soft, fragile sound of sobbing. I didn't need to look closely to know it was Chu Anxian. 3 months into my marriage into the Yen household, this distant younger cousin, who resided with us as a dependent, was a master of this very act, appearing delicate as a flower drenched in rain, deflecting blame with a few meek words, and quietly casting aspersions on me, the legitimate mistress of the house. I entered slowly, maintaining an even poise, and swept my cool gaze across the assembled company. Chu Anxian sat on a low couch to the side, her right arm hanging slightly limp, the cuff of her sleeve dusted with a faint trace of dirt. Her hair was slightly disheveled, her eyes rimmed red, and tears streamed down her cheeks. The maids and matrons clustered around her wore expressions of pity, but their looks at me held a hint of veiled discontent and suspicion. Upon seeing me enter, the crying lowered in pitch but grew more plaintive, as if she were holding back a great grievance. Cousin-in-law. Chu Anxian rose to greet me, swaying slightly as if bearing a great injustice, her voice soft and choked with tears. It was my clumsiness. I tripped and fell in the rear corridor. I've disturbed the household's tranquility, and I beg your forgiveness, cousin-in-law. The words sounded like an apology, but each was a hidden barb. The rear corridor was smooth and clean, swept daily by dedicated servants. How could one simply trip for no reason? By claiming a fall, she was subtly implying that I, as the mistress, was a harsh taskmaster, that the servants were negligent, and, more pointedly, that I couldn't tolerate a helpless orphan under my roof and was secretly treating her cruelly, driving her to such a sorry state. In the past, mindful of her dependent and orphan status, I would have offered a few placating words and let the matter rest, avoiding the gossip of a jealous and oppressive mistress. But my concessions only emboldened her, and the household gossip had never ceased. Today, I would not yield another inch. I walked to the main seat and sat down, my fingertips resting lightly on the gilded armrests. My voice was calm and unruffled but carried the undeniable authority of the mistress of the house. A fall. The corridor floors are smooth, without snow or ice, and are swept clean every day. Why would you fall? Chu Anxian's body gave another tremor, a flicker of panic crossing her eyes before being replaced by a look of fragile innocence. She lowered her head, sobbing. You don't believe me, cousin-in-law. I truly didn't mean to. Perhaps I am simply weak, my steps unsteady, and I stumbled. Weak. I raised a brow, my gaze falling on her wrist, which appeared to be slightly scraped. I came through the hanging flower gate just now and saw you laughing and playing with your maids. Your steps light and lively, your spirits high. In the span of a few moments, you become frail and stumble. Anxian. That excuse is rather flimsy. A ripple of surprise went through the hall. No one expected me, usually so gentle and forbearing, to publicly expose Chu Anxian's ruse. Chu Anxian's face paled, and her tears fell faster. You doubt me, cousin-in-law. I am a dependent here, sheltered by the old madam and the heir, and cared for by you. I am full of gratitude. How would I dare to be deceitful? If you truly despise me, I will move to a remote side courtyard and live alone, so as not to offend your eyes. She had perfectly painted herself as a helpless victim at the end of her rope. If I pursued this further, I would be branded as cruel, jealous, and vindictive. The surrounding maids and matrons were already showing signs of sympathy, their gazes towards me growing more complex. But I remained utterly unruffled, a faint, cold smile curving my lips. Moving to a side courtyard is quite unnecessary. The Yen household has room for you to live in peace, if you choose to do so. However, our rules are strict, and we do not tolerate those who use feigned weakness to stir up trouble and undermine the authority of the mistress. I looked at the senior matron waiting on the side, my tone growing firm. Investigate. Find out which servants were on duty in the corridor. If there was a genuine hazard that caused the young lady to fall, it's dereliction of duty and they must be punished. But if this was a deliberate fabrication, a calculated act of mischief, then it's a contempt for household rules, an attempt to sow discord between the mistress and the dependents and must be dealt with severely. The matron was taken aback for a moment before quickly bowing in acknowledgement, having served in the Yen household for many years. She knew well how to read the room. My firm stance today made it clear I was genuinely angered, and that I would not be easily placated as before. Chu Anqian's mask of fragility finally cracked, a flicker of fear passing through her eyes. She had intended for a small stumble to garner sympathy and cast me as a cruel mistress, slowly eroding my authority. She hadn't expected me to bypass her theatrics entirely and invoke the household rules for a formal investigation, cutting off her path of pitiful manipulation. Cousin-in-law, there's no need for such severity. It was just a small matter, she quickly interjected, her tone losing its earlier note of grievance. There are no small matters in this household, I interrupted calmly, my gaze sweeping over everyone present, my words crisp and clear. As the mistress, I uphold the rules. If someone can fabricate an incident using feigned weakness to stir discord today, tomorrow someone else will dare to flout the rules entirely. Let me make this clear. From now on, all in this household who conduct themselves properly will be treated well, but those who deliberately cause trouble and sow discord will not be tolerated. The hall fell into utter silence. Everyone understood that from this day on, the Yen household would no longer be a stage for Chu Anqian to play the victim. After 3 months of forbearance, I had finally established my authority, tearing through her carefully maintained facade of innocence. And I knew this was only the beginning. This seemingly gentle and harmless young cousin harbored depths of calculation and ambition far beyond what appeared on the surface. Before the standoff in the flower hall could fully settle, a languid, casual footsteps sounded from outside. Yen Linyuan pushed open the door and entered. His dark robes accentuated his tall, straight figure, his brows and eyes exuding a willful, defiant pride. Carrying an air of carefree hedonism, he was the most notorious playboy of the capital, spending his days in endless banquets and pleasures, utterly indifferent to household affairs, and never concerning himself with the scheming of the inner courtyard. The servants were accustomed to this. No matter how intense the disturbances in the back mansion, their heir would always remain aloof, an indifferent observer, never taking sides. It was precisely this that allowed Chu Anqian to run rampant. Confident that Yen Linyuan would never involve himself in such trivial domestic squabbles, Chu Anqian seemed to see a lifeline. Her eyes reddened instantly, and she hurried forward, giving a slight curtsy, her voice soft and pitiful. Heir. She deliberately slowed her movements, lifting her arm slightly to display the faint scrape, a picture of silent, suffering grievance, waiting for Yen Linyuan to inquire, to offer his customary sympathy and favor. The servants lowered their heads, already assuming the heir would show pity for the poor orphaned cousin and offer words of comfort, thereby branding me as harsh and overbearing. After all, it was well known that Yen Linyuan was a free spirit who could never resist a beauty in tears. But the expected gentle words never came. Yen Linyuan's gaze swept coolly over her reddened eyes and her feigned, fragile posture, revealing not a hint of pity in his eyes, only a distant indifference. He didn't even spare a second glance at her scrape. With a light turn of his step, he walked straight past Chu Anqian and came to stand beside me. Everyone was stunned, even their breathing unconsciously lightening. Chu Anqian froze, the aggrieved expression on her face instantly solidifying, a flash of shock and mortification darting through her eyes. She had never imagined that Yen Linyuan, usually so gentle and accommodating towards her, would today ignore her plea for sympathy entirely. What's all this commotion about? Yen Linyuan looked down at me, his tone shedding its usual casual flippancy for a subtle, almost imperceptible gentleness. It wasn't the tone of someone questioning a subordinate, but rather like someone patiently waiting to hear my side of the story. I looked back at him, my heart sinking slightly. In the 3 months since our marriage, he had always treated me with polite distance, maintaining the facade of a harmonious couple in public, but cool and taciturn in private. He had never approached me with such proactive warmth and gentle inquiry. I didn't exaggerate. Simply stating the facts plainly, Cousin Anqian fell in the rear corridor. There is suspicion of either negligence or deliberate mischief. I am ordering a full investigation to clarify the rules of the household. Yan Lingyuan's gaze cooled as he turned to look at the uneasy Chu Anxian. His tone utterly devoid of warmth. A fall. 2 simple words. Yet they carried an immense, oppressive weight. Chu Anxian's heart clenched. She quickly suppressed her panic, her eyes reddening once more as she choked out. Yes. It was my own carelessness. No one else's fault. Perhaps I am just unlucky, my constitution weak, and I caused such a stir, disturbing the heir and cousin-in-law. It is my fault. She was still clinging to her strategy of playing the victim, seemingly admitting fault while subtly insinuating that I was the one being relentless and unforgiving, unable to tolerate even an unintentional mishap. Had it been any other young master of the capital, the sight of such fragility would surely have stirred sympathy, prompting a diplomatic intercession to urge the mistress to be more lenient. But Yan Linyuan was different. A cold, faintly mocking smile touched his lips. His gaze sharp as a blade, piercing straight through her pretense. The rear corridor is swept daily, clean and dry. The servants each have their duties. No one has ever stumbled there for no reason. Everyone walks steadily, only you, with your weak constitution, fall. Chu Anxian's face went deathly pale, her fingers clenching her sleeves, her voice trembling. Heir. Living in the Yan household, eating Yan household's rice, receiving Yan household's care. Yan Linyuan cut off her excuses, his tone hard and decisive, leaving no room for argument. Since you are a dependent, you should know your place and conduct yourself with propriety. Creating trouble, using false fragility to disrupt the inner quarters, breaking the rules, and seeking sympathy from others, this is hardly proper behavior. The words fell, clear and distinct, echoing through the entire flower hall. The assembled servants fell completely silent, no one daring to harbor any further speculation or dissatisfaction towards me. None had expected the heir, so famously indifferent to family affairs and fond of pleasure, to so decisively put down Chu Anxian and openly side with his lawful wife. Chu Anxian's eyes were red, tears welling. But she dared not let them fall. Humiliation burned in her cheeks. Her carefully orchestrated performance of victimhood had not only failed to harm me but had instead earned her the label of a troublemaker who didn't know her place. Yan Linyuan's gaze returned to me, the harshness immediately softening into warmth. Madam handles the household fairly and upholds the rules. There's no need to accommodate anyone. The rules should be clear and strictly enforced. Whoever causes trouble will be punished. That single sentence was an unequivocal show of support for me. Suspicion swirled in my heart, though my face remained calm and collected. I gave a slight nod. I understand. His behavior today was too strange. The world believed Yan Linyuan to be a fickle and unrestrained playboy, softest towards delicate women. Yet today, faced with the pitifully charming Chu Anxian, he had been cold and distant, his words entirely in my favor. These 3 months of aloof distance contrasted starkly with today's open protection, 2 entirely different personas, reeking of ulterior motives. I stole a quiet glance at him. The young man's brows were willful and proud, carrying the innate arrogance of a great family's heir. Yet deep within his eyes lay a veiled, restrained intensity one had never before deciphered. The confrontation in the flower hall ended with Chu Anxian's total defeat. The senior matron quickly investigated and confirmed the truth. Chu Anxian had been playing and laughing, deliberately staged her fall, and used it to stir up trouble. Yan Linyuan immediately ordered her confined to her courtyard for 3 months, forbidden from setting foot outside. This decisively cut off her ability to wander the household, win favor, and manipulate people. From that day on, everyone in the mansion knew that although their heir seemed carefree, he was fiercely protective of his wife. No one dared to speculate or slander me again, but I knew it was only a beginning. Chu Anxian, who had harbored her ambitions for so long, would not give up so easily. New schemes were already brewing in the shadows. Barely 2 days into her confinement, whispers began to circulate through the mansion. At first, it was only the maids and matrons gossiping in hushed tones. Fragmented murmurs that quickly spread throughout the entire Yan household. Some said I, the legitimate wife, was petty, narrow-minded, and jealous. unable to tolerate the gentle and endearing presence of my dependent cousin. Making a mountain out of a molehill and using the rules to bully the helpless Chuanxian. Others, more maliciously, suggested I couldn't abide any woman near the heir. If he so much as glanced at a servant, they claimed, I would have her cruelly punished. Their words painted me as a ferocious, jealous shrew utterly devoid of grace. The gossip escalated, threatening to spill beyond the mansion walls and into the streets, if left unchecked. Within days, my reputation as the eldest daughter of the Gu family and the mistress of the Yan household would be ruined. I sat quietly in the main room, listening as my personal maid, Wan Sue, reported the rumors she had gathered. My fingertips traced the rim of my teacup, my expression placid, betraying no alarm. Wan Sue, however, was seething with indignation. She whispered, Miss, it was clearly that cousin who started the trouble, and now they're making you out to be the villain. She's confined to her courtyard, yet she's managed to stir up a storm of gossip throughout the whole mansion. She must have instructed her personal maids to spread the rumors, deliberately trying to besmirch your name. I raised my eyes calmly. I know it's her work. Since she can't appear in person, she's using rumors to erode my reputation and turn public opinion. She's waiting for people to feel sorry for her and force me to relent. To lift her confinement. Chu Anxian was always meticulous and patient. After failing in a direct confrontation, she turned to underhanded means, using others to wound me while keeping her own hands clean. It was a clever play, but she forgot something. My previous forbearance was a calculated choice for the greater good, a desire to avoid internal conflict, not a sign of weakness. Since she was determined to cause trouble, I would meet her hidden and cut off her every avenue of escape. I turned to Wan Sue and instructed, Go, quietly find out which servants were the first to spread the rumors. Who's fanning the flames and adding their own embellishments. Record every name and every detail. Get solid evidence. But don't raise any suspicion. Wan Sue acknowledged the order and hurried away. Within half an hour, she returned with detailed information, holding a piece of paper clearly inscribed with 4 names. All were matrons who frequently visited Chu Anxian's courtyard, had close dealings with her personal maids, and were in her confidence. According to the investigation, the rumors had originated with these 4 individuals. They would spread exaggerated and twisted accounts during their daily rounds, surreptitiously undermining my character while elevating Chu Anxian's image of fragile innocence. After reading the paper, a cold smile touched my lips. Even confined to her courtyard, Chu Anxian could still command the mansion's servants to do her bidding. Her ability to cultivate loyal followers over the months was evident. If I didn't purge them thoroughly, they would surely cause greater harm. I immediately rose and proceeded to the public hall, summoning all the stewards, maids, and matrons to gather for an open hearing. The assembled servants stood in orderly rows, most aware of the recent rumors and looking apprehensive, not daring to meet my eyes. Only the 4 matrons who had spread the gossip feigned composure, standing among the crowd, privately betting that I lacked the proof to convict them. I took my place at the head, my gaze coldly sweeping over the assembly. My voice was clear and carried throughout the hall. Recently, rumors have been flying about this household, accusing me of being jealous and cruel, of oppressing my cousin. Today, I will lay out the truth for everyone, distinguish right from wrong, and quell these slanders. Silence descended. No one dared to speak. I signaled Wan Sue to step forward and present the evidence she had gathered. The origins of the rumors, the paths of their transmission, the precise words and actions of the 4 matrons. The content of their idle chatterall were laid out clearly and methodically, with supporting proof for every detail. The faces of the 4 matrons turned ashen, their legs weakening. They could no longer maintain their charade. They fell to their knees, knocking their heads on the floor and begging for mercy. Forgive us, mistress. We were foolish and lustunged. We never meant to spread rumors and cause trouble. Please, have mercy. Never meant to. I looked down at them, my tone icy but authoritative. In just a few days, these rumors spread through the entire mansion. each word a twisted fabrication meant to slander the mistress, sow discord, and disrupt the peace of the household. Would casual, loose talk spread with such unified phrasing and such alarming speed? I pressed on, puncturing their excuses one by one, offering no room for escape. You frequent the cousin's courtyard daily, acting on instructions from her personal maids. You fanned the flames, fabricated lies, showed contempt for the household rules, and attempted to undermine your superior. The evidence is irrefutable. How dare you claim it was unintentional? The four matrons were completely silenced. They could only kowtow frantically, their foreheads striking the floor, trembling violently, utterly powerless to defend themselves. My gaze swept the room. The first rule of the Yen household is to know your place, not to gossip about your masters, not to spread rumors, not to cause discord. As servants, instead of fulfilling your duties properly, you conspired with outsiders to incite slander and ruin the mistress's reputation. Such behavior will not be tolerated. I passed sentence. The four would receive 20 strokes with a heavy bamboo rod, be expelled from the Yen household forever, and their family members would be barred from any employment with the Yen family. The other servants who had privately echoed the gossip would have 3 months' wages docked and receive a formal reprimand as a warning to all. The judgment was rendered, and the hall fell into a state of profound awe. Everyone understood now. I was no weakling to be manipulated. My former tolerance was a matter of character, not a sign of vulnerability. Anyone who dared to spread rumors, gossip about their masters, or stir up trouble would face the same fate. The wave of rumors that had swept through the mansion was crushed by my decisive action. Chu Anqian's hidden machinations were shattered, and her carefully constructed image of innocent victimhood, backed by the servant's testimony, was thoroughly exposed. No one would secretly advocate for her again. After this affair, order was restored, and the mansion settled into a period of peace. Chu Anqian remained in seclusion, making no further moves. She appeared to have repented and subdued her ambitions, but I did not relax my guard. She was patient and deep-thinking. A single setback or punishment was unlikely to crush her ambitions. This calm was merely a lull, a time to gather strength and wait for her moment. And Yen Lingyuan's strange behavior continued to gnaw at me, deepening my confusion. Since the incident in the flower hall, his manner toward me had grown significantly warmer. A complete departure from his former distance and coldness, where he had rarely visited my main courtyard before. He now came daily, either sitting quietly with me at meals or simply reading in companionable silence. He was gentle and thoughtful, a world away from the dissolute playboy of popular rumor. He still attended social engagements and maintained appearances, upholding his reputation as a pleasure seeker. But the rumors of entanglements with other women vanished entirely. He kept a careful distance. I still couldn't understand him, but I didn't press. I watched and waited, confident that the truth would eventually surface. One afternoon, I went to the study to review some estate accounts with him. When I arrived at the outer study, I found he had stepped out on some business. Only a young attendant was present, who bowed upon seeing me. I knew that the study was Yen Lingyuan's private domain, off limits to casual meddling. So I waited quietly without touching anything. My gaze wandered idly over the bookshelves and, in a high, hidden corner, I spotted a small, dust-covered box of red sandalwood. It was tucked away behind a stack of classics, nearly invisible unless you were looking for it, clearly placed there with care, as something to be kept secret. I had no intention of prying, but my attention was caught by a fragment of an old letter peeking out from beneath the lid. Something about the paper's texture and watermark seemed familiar. It was the kind of stationery used exclusively in my own family's household during my youth, not available elsewhere. After a moment's hesitation, driven by a nagging curiosity I couldn't suppress, I reached up and carefully took down the box. I lifted the lid. Inside, neatly arranged, were several small, old items. None were valuable treasures. All were intimately connected to me. A small jade pendant, engraved with the Gu family crest, which I had lost years ago. A silver hairpin studded with crabapple blossoms, the one I had worn at my comingafage ceremony and later misplaced. several old papers with my childish calligraphy, cast aside and lost years ago, and at the very bottom, pressed beneath the others, was a yellowed old guest list from a spring banquet held 10 years ago. I had attended that banquet with my parents when I was just 16. The year of my coming of age, Yan Linyuan had also been present. My fingers trembled slightly as I lifted the list. And there, beside my name, I saw a line of small, faint annotations, written in a sharp, elegant hand I recognized as Yan Linyuan's. Only 4 characters. XINU. Joe. Loved her. Long ago. It hit me like a thunderclap. A massive upheaval in my heart. All the confusion. All the unanswered questions. All the anomalies suddenly. Everything clicked into place. 10 years of silent love. This marriage, celebrated by all as a perfect match of great houses, had never been a convenient arrangement of social standing. It was his deliberate, decade-long scheming, his outward persona as a playboy, his languid dissipation. It was a carefully constructed facade, a shield to deflect prying eyes, designed to protect the secret affection he held so deeply. His cold distance after our marriage wasn't callousness or indifference. It was restraint and forbearance. He was afraid that his fervent feelings would frighten me, that this decade-old secret would be used against me. Becoming a burden, Chu Anxian's cunning advances and constant probing had seen through them all from the start. His previous neglect was born of contempt, and of a wish not to let domestic strife disturb my peace. His open protection that day in the flower hall was a moment of overwhelming emotion after years of restraint, a decision that he would no longer let me suffer any injustice. I stared at the old keepsakes in the box, emotions churning within me. The world mocked Yan Linyuan as a fickle and heartless rogue. No one knew that this proud, defiant, untamable heir of the Yan family had concealed his purest, most enduring love for 10 long years and had given it only to me. "What are you looking at?" A low, gentle male voice spoke suddenly from the doorway. I started. Looking up, Yan Linyuan stood at the entrance, tall and imposing. His gaze fell upon the sandalwood box in my hands, and a flicker of panic, embarrassment, and barely concealed anxiety crossed his eyes, the look of a man whose deepest secret had just been discovered. He was always so defiant, so effortlessly composed. He had probably never been so flustered in his life. I softly closed the box and slowly walked toward him. My mind now settled. All confusion and doubt dissolved. Where once I had been passive, reacting defensively to every scheme, now, knowing the truth and holding his heart in my hands, I held all the cards. Looking at the barely concealed unease in his eyes, I spoke quietly, my voice calm but certain. "Heir, I've uncovered a secret you've kept for 10 years. Are you going to keep up the act?" Yan Linyuan froze, his deep eyes fixed on me. All his practiced casualness, his defiant aloofness, fell away, revealing only a burning, passionate sincerity. The decade of careful restraint shattered. There was a long silence before he spoke, his voice slightly hoarse, stripped of all pretense, offering only his sincere heart. "Yes, I have loved you 10 years, and I have never changed." The confession encompassed all the hidden years, all the depth of his feeling. I looked at him, my heart now completely clear. Once, I had been trapped in the machinations of the inner household, surrounded by hidden agendas. Now, with the truth revealed, I would never again be passive, a pawn to be moved. Chu Anxian's schemes and provocations would no longer have the power to affect me. After lying dormant for so long, Chu Anxian could no longer resist. On the very day her confinement ended, she cast off the mask of obedience and made her final, desperate gambit. She knew her previous 2 schemes had failed and her reputation was damaged. The old tricks of playing the victim and spreading rumors were useless. She chose instead a more vicious path, hoping for a single, decisive blow that would pull me down from my position as mistress. On the day she was released, she chose her moment carefully. A grand banquet hosted by the old Madame Yen, attended by noble ladies from all over the capital. She made her move publicly. In the midst of the feast, as the ladies chatted, Chu Anxian rose abruptly. She walked to the center of the hall and knelt before the old madam. Her eyes reddened instantly, and her voice was filled with sorrow and grievance, each word seeming to drip with blood. "Old madam, I humbly beg you to do justice for me." The guests fell silent, all eyes turning to her, curious and intrigued. Chu Anxian hung her head, tears falling as her voice choked with sobs. "I have lived in the Yen household for several months, always cautious and respectful, never stepping out of line. But cousin-in-law has always detested me. She wronged me before, using the rules to punish me and place me under confinement. Now that I have been freed, her hatred remains. She secretly withholds my allowance, bullies me through the servants, and subjects me to daily humiliation. I have nowhere to turn." She raised her tear-filled eyes, her expression one of utter suffering and despair, the picture of a helpless victim. "I am an orphan, with no one to rely on. I was grateful for the Yen family's shelter, but I never expected to be bullied and humiliated at every turn by cousin-in-law. I beg you, old madam, either send me to another household, or let me leave. I cannot bear to stay here any longer." Her words were moving, genuine in their anguish. She immediately garnered the sympathy of the entire hall. The assembled ladies looked on with pity, their gazes towards me growing sharp with unspoken accusation and disapproval. Everyone saw me as the jealous, narrow-minded mistress, unable to tolerate a helpless cousin, constantly bullying her, unworthy of my position and breeding. In an instant, the tide of opinion turned against me. Pity and censure flowed towards Chu Anxian, while I was cast as the villain, cruel and petty, persecuting the weak. I sat calmly at my seat, my expression placid, betraying no anger or agitation. Watching her tearful, theatrical performance, I felt only indifference. I had predicted she would make a desperate, reckless move before her confinement was even lifted. I had already prepared my defenses and gathered all the necessary evidence. I was just waiting for her to walk into the trap. Before the old madam could speak, I rose slowly. My voice was calm and gentle, but every word was sharp and clear, cutting through the murmurs. "Cousin's words are indeed moving, but I wonder, when did I withhold your allowance, bully you through the servants, and humiliate you daily? Please point to the exact times, the places, and the servants involved. Provide your evidence, so that everyone here can judge the truth." Chu Anxian, still in tears, feigned a look of pitiable helplessness. "Cousin-in-law, you control the household finances and all its servants. You can easily hide your misdeeds. I am just an orphan, with no power and no influence. How could I possibly produce evidence?" Her words appeared to be a lament of suffering, but they were a masterful insinuation, implying that I, using my authority, was deliberately oppressing her, leaving her with no one to hear her pleas. The whispering grew louder, the criticism of me more intense, but I was unruffled. A faint, cold smile touched my lips. I raised my hand and signaled for the senior matron waiting behind me to step forward. "You have no evidence, but I do," I said calmly. "From the very day of your confinement, I ordered that all your provisions, your monthly allowance, and your daily necessities be personally recorded by the senior matron each time they were delivered. Every item, every day, was registered in a ledger, leaving a complete record. No one could have secretly withheld or altered anything." The matron stepped forward, holding a thick ledger. She opened it and began to read aloud, page by page. The ledger was clear: dates, categories, and details from silks and fabrics, seasonal clothes, fruits and snacks, to monthly silver, medicinal tonics, and tonics. Every single delivery was recorded accurately, arriving on time and in full. In fact, her allowance was more generous than that given to the average collateral relative of the household. There was no hint of any shortage or withholding. The details in the ledger were clear and irrefutable evidence, completely demolishing Chu Anxian's claims of withheld allowance and lack of necessities. Next, I called forward the two personal maids who had attended Chu Anxian's courtyard. These maids were honest and simple women. They testified truthfully that I had never ordered them to mistreat or bully Chu Anxian. On the contrary, Chu Anxian herself was arrogant, demanding, and quick to find fault, often beating and scolding the servants, who were all too intimidated to speak up. The evidence was overwhelming. Chu Anxian's tearful accusations were now revealed as a farce, a ridiculous charade. The look of pitiful suffering on her face froze, her color draining, leaving her pale and utterly panicked. The guests' expressions changed instantly. Their earlier sympathy evaporated, replaced by contempt and cold indifference. Now they could see clearly. This seemingly weak and pitiful cousin was in fact a master of manipulation, capable of slander and deceit. My gaze fell coldly on the kneeling Chu Anxian. My voice was unhurried, but each word struck home. I have always treated you with tolerance and forbearance. Out of pity for your orphan state, I forgave your minor faults. But you are ungrateful, unrepentant, constantly overstepping, starting trouble, spreading lies, making false accusations, and repeatedly inciting discord in the inner quarters of the Yen household. Today, the guests here are witnesses. Right and wrong, good and evil, let the world be the judge. The words fell, clear and resolute, putting an end to all debate. From her seat at the head of the hall, the old madam's face had grown dark, her eyes filled with cold disappointment and anger. She was a generous and kind woman, but she abhorred hypocrisy and deception above all else. She had now fully seen Chu Anxian's true nature. Before the old madam could render her judgment, a tall figure stepped forward and came to stand beside me. Yan Linyuan stood at my side, his willful, cold aura radiating around him. His gaze fell heavily on Chu Anxian, devoid of warmth, utterly glacial. In the past, he had been patient with her schemes, mindful of family ties. But today, she had dared to openly slander me in front of the guests, tarnish my reputation, and bring shame to the Yen household. She had crossed a line. Living in the Yen household as a dependent, you are supported by the Yen family. Instead of being grateful and staying within your bounds, you constantly cause trouble and stir up discord. Yan Linyuan's voice was icy, stripped of all sentiment. Your hypocrisy, your venomous scheming, your lies and slander, your attempts to frame the mistress, such behavior will never be tolerated. He immediately issued his judgment, stripping Chu Anxian of her status as a dependent in the Yen household. He ordered a carriage prepared to escort her back to a remote ancestral estate, cutting off all possibility of her returning to the capital or clinging to the Yen family's influence. She was forbidden to ever again set foot in the Yen mansion. This decree was final and irrevocable. Chu Anxian collapsed to the ground, her face ashen. All her schemes, her ambitions, her dreams of advancement shattered into dust. She had become the laughingstock of the entire assembly. All she had carefully built over so many months was destroyed by her own greed and malice. Not a single guest felt sorry for her. There was only scorn and disdain. Everyone could now see clearly. I, the mistress of the Yen household, was fair and wise, judicious and composed. I had endured repeated affronts with grace, only to strike back with devastating force when necessary. My character and fortitude were far superior. The banquet ended, the guests dispersed, and the courtyard fell quiet. An evening breeze wandered through, scattering a few fallen blossoms. Lanterns flickered in the gentle twilight, casting a serene glow. Only I and Yan Linyuan remained in the hall. The days of pretense, of restraint, of probing and scheming were over. The hidden malice, the unwanted complications, all had been swept away. Yan Linyuan slowly turned to face me, his defiant demeanor completely set aside. All that was left in his eyes was a burning, sincere passion, shorn of its Playboy mask, shorn of youthful pride, leaving only a deep and earnest affection. He stepped closer, his gaze fixed on me, his voice low and tender, bearing his soul. Ling-yi, this depth of feeling began 10 years ago, and all of it was for you. In my youth, I played the rogue. I kept my distance. I was foolish and clumsy. I didn't know how to protect you properly. I feared my love would become a burden to you. that others would use it to scheme against you. I just wanted to watch over you silently, to keep you safe, and to see you live a peaceful life. After we were married, I was deliberately cold. That was my own selfishness, my own cowardice. I was afraid that my fervent feelings would disrupt your peace, that my obsessive love would trap you. Every time I saw you suffer in silence, calculating and enduring, my own heart ached more than you could know. I didn't dare to show my protection too openly, so I secretly cleared countless hidden obstacles for you, quietly smoothed your path, and hid all my feelings and my strength. He raised his hand and, with the utmost gentleness and restraint, clasped my wrist. His grip was tender and lingering, filled with careful reverence. In his eyes was a vulnerability and devotion he had never shown to anyone else. Today, all the masks are gone. I will no longer pretend to be a wanderer, no longer keep my distance, no longer hold back. For the rest of my life, my love and my protection will be yours alone. My defiance, my strength, my power, my heart, all will be yours to command. For 10 years, I loved you in silence. I guarded you in secret. For the rest of my life, I will bow before you. I will be yours to tame and yours to command. I will protect you, keep you safe, and never allow anyone to harm you again. This heartfelt confession spanned 10 years of patience, 10 years of unspoken devotion, 10 years of restraint. This most defiant, untamable heir of the Yen family, who had bowed to no one, had finally cast aside all pride and pretense, and willingly, unreservedly, surrendered himself to me alone. I looked into his eyes, seeing the burning, pure sincerity within. All my past doubts, my misgivings, my confusion melted away, leaving only a clear, steady certainty. I had weathered countless conflicts, plotted step by step, exposed falsehoods, quelled slander, cut through unwanted entanglements, and dismantled his careful facade. Finally uncovering the sincere heart he had hidden for 10 years, I raised my hand and gently covered his, a serene and contented smile touching my lips. In the labyrinth of a great household, with its hidden schemes and deceptions, I had held my ground, seen clearly the hearts of those around me, and with my own discernment and wisdom, I had tamed this proud, unyielding heart, a heart that would now beat only for me. From this day forward, the capital would know no more of the dissolute, willful heir. There would only be Yan Lin Yuan, the devoted husband, whose heart was sworn to his wife. In the years to come, our days would be filled with joy and peace. His decade of silent love would finally bear fruit, and I would walk with steady grace through the rest of our lives. A mutual devotion, a promise kept through the years, a love unwavering, a future without care.